My name is Paul Saxberg. I am a game designer. I've published a game called Coven through 8 Summit Games. Currently it's my only published design, although I have about somewhere between 50 and 100 other designs on the go at any given moment. In terms of how long I've been a game designer, I can remember designing my own games at about age 6 using Hot Wheels and Lego and components like that. But I didn't seriously start working on it until coming out to Calgary about a decade ago when I met up with the people who would become the Game Artisans of Canada. I am the steward of the Calgary chapter, meaning that if you're in Calgary and you want to hook up with this design group, come talk to me, and I will, or just come down to the Sentry box on Monday nights, and we'll be happy to have you show us your game. You can play test our games, and so on and so forth. I am also a community manager for Roxley Games, meaning that I get to help develop their games and demo and otherwise support them. I do have a day job, so I can't do this full-time yet. I work in a casino. I count money in a vault. It does give me an opportunity to spend a lot of time sort of in the back of my brain designing games while I'm doing my job. In terms of how I got into gaming, it's basically because I was a weird little kid who had no social skills and very few friends, and the friends that I did have, we played games instead of played board games, played miniatures games. And then when I got into high school, I started to discover more of the hobby aspect for it. Things like Dungeons and Dragons and old Steve Jackson games like Shade Geek and Illuminati. And they introduced me to the concept that there was other games out there besides Monopoly, Scrabble, chess, which I already loved from playing with my parents all the time. Now, I will totally say my favorite game is Santorini by Dr. Gordon Hamilton, and I know he's going to be in this video too. It is my job to promote that game, but I stand behind it completely. It's so elegant, it's so beautiful. Gavin's done such a great job making it. In terms of something that I'm not professionally connected to, I would name Richard Garfield as a fantastic designer. I just adore the work he did on early Magic: The Gathering, and Vlada Fatil, I think I'm pronouncing that properly. His versatility and 3 or 4 of his games just nail it for me. You know, Galaxy Trucker and Codenames and Pictomania, like just such games that are so different from each other and yet are simultaneously so awesome. Regarding Coven, Coven was a transformative and educational experience for me. I first had the idea a couple years after joining the Game Artisans of Canada. It took me about 4 years to design and develop it. I entered it 2 succeeding years in the Canadian Game Design of the Year award contest. The second year it won. It showed disastrously in the first year. I got some very nasty feedback, which was totally deserved, but I fixed all the problems that were indicated, and then it proceeded to win the second year that I put it in. I had incredible good luck and bad luck with this design. Out of the blue, a publisher contacted me about the game. As a designer, that doesn't happen. You don't get that kind of good luck as a designer, and to a certain degree it kind of blinded me to the situation where the publisher has a very different vision of games that I do. 8 Summit is very, very good at what's called a storytelling game. So if you've played something like Agents of Smersh, for example, that's his oeuvre, that's what he's into. Coven was not really his style, and so he took it from me and further developed it, but the resulting game was kind of this strange Frankenstein hybrid of his style and my style, which does have its fans, but unfortunately kind of misses the mark for people into my game and people into his game. And then there was a number of accidental production issues that weren't really under anyone's control that have contributed to the game not being a very good success on the market. So that kind of stings, but it's also super educational. I've learned a great deal from it. The one I'm working on right now that I have a prototype here for is something called Goblin Run, and it's sort of this idea of a team of goblins trying to race through Underdark type caverns between the Dwarf and Dark Elf Empire and being menaced from both sides at the same time and retrieve artifacts, you know, because they're daring little thieves kind of idea. Okay, so this is what we call an alpha prototype, meaning it's barely been tested. I actually have tested a previous version, so this would be the second alpha. We would call it a beta once it starts to we start to have some confidence that it's worth working on, I guess. In terms of the game itself, the idea is these are hexes are kind of like cards in your hand, and you're going to be getting a hand of them and playing several of them, kind of like a simultaneous bidding system. And the purpose of these is, these represent your little teams of goblins going through caverns, which you're going to build off that way. And so you're going to place the caverns, and you're going to use these cards to move through them. And so you have two goals, essentially. One of the goals is you want to get as far that way as possible because it is a race. The second goal is the caverns that have squares on them are going to have treasures in them. So if you maneuver yourself into those caverns ahead of the other players, you'll be able to collect those things for victory points at the end of the game. The cards have initiatives on them, which I don't know if you can see them that well. So if several people play these four things in at the same time, then they resolve in the order of the cards. So this person would spend the first turn playing that, for example, and then 4 would be the next, so the next player would then put this somewhere. Now I've got them colored into 2 empires because it's supposed to be running along the border between 2 different underground empires, and the idea being that you can only connect them to the correct color. And what I'm trying to do with that is emergently keep it so that the board always goes this way as people put tiles in. Because in the first version that I made, the tiles just spread out in all the different directions, and we ended up with goblins way over here, which is not what I want to have happen in the game. So that's the thing I learned from the first alpha of this game. This version here has not been played. Oh yes, and this pile here as well. We're going to have the actual armies of the Dark Elves and the Dwarves show up and mess with the goblins, you know, to add some extra danger and tactics and things. And these have not been tested yet, so those might be a complete train wreck disaster. We will see. It's a point game, so you will get points both for collecting treasures and also for being further into the darkness than the other goblins at the end of the game. Game ends when these run out. I'm an idea person, which I think is, I'm really good at it, but that's only so useful as a game designer. I have infinite ideas, there's an infinite supply of ideas out there, and if anyone out there does not have ideas, feel free to contact me and I will give you some. What's in shortage as a game designer is people who have the time and ability to take an idea, prototype it, take critique on it, playtest it, repeat as many times as is necessary to create a good finished product. So for me, I love creating the games. I love the creation process. The trouble is I have 6 finished games stuck in my head at the moment, and I don't have time to make them. That's what I hate the most about game design, is not having time to do it full time. What I like the most is when I do put a prototype on the table and it fires and it works. And of course the guys destroy it with their critique because that's their job and that's what has to happen. But when part of it works and it's genuine fun, that's awesome. That's the most fun part. If you're a random person out there and you're just interested in getting started and maybe you've got a couple ideas in the back of your head and you've never bothered to get around to making them, oh, that's really the trick, is bother to get around to making them. Make an actual alpha, put some pieces together, get your friends to play it. If it's a train wreck, that's fine. You learned something. Do it again.